One sunny morning, a husband and wife named Bong and Shunai were seen. Currently involved in quite serious negotiations because Shunai is going on holiday to an island with her friend. And intends to entrust his friend's daughter to Bong. Where Bong feels reluctant if he has to look after the child, which will definitely be very troublesome. Until after quite a long debate, Bong finally couldn't refuse his beloved wife's request. Long story short, on the day of departure, Bong took Shunai and her friend to the airport. Then in the evening he picked up the entrusted child named Yoonji. But it's not as complicated as you might imagine. Here Bong actually feels happy and relieved when Yoonji plans to stay overnight at his friend's house, Yoonyo, to do group assignments. So that Bong will be free from the obligation to take care of the child for a while. As a result, here Bong gives advice to always be careful, while putting some pocket money into Yoonji's wallet. Then on his way home he saw a woman being harassed, which made his thoughts immediately focus on Yoonji. Because according to him the boy was still quite unstable and vulnerable to danger. Moving to another place, it appears Yoonji is being held hostage by her senior named Sungyun. We're not just bullying or insulting, this jerk senior also intends to trade Yoonji as satisfying the desires of men out there. Then in the middle of the bullying action suddenly, Bong arrived at that place, because it turned out that he had previously put a GPS tracker in Yoonji's wallet, so he could find her whereabouts easily. And finally Bong had to step in to beat up the naughty students there. Because Shunai had told Bong to look after Yoonji as best as possible. Until finally Sungyun and his friends were beaten. After the tense incident that night, the relationship between Bong and Yoonji began to grow closer. But at the same time problems also started to emerge. Where the following night the police were seen investigating a skating place, because there had been a murder that killed 5 students. None other than that was the place where Yoonji was held hostage before. Then, when Bong looked for further information, he discovered the surprising fact that the 5 victims who died at the skating park were the 5 students he had beaten. And according to the results of the police investigation, the murder occurred a short time ago, after Bong left the scene of the crime. The next day a policeman named Lee came to see Bong, to show him CCTV which recorded Bong's car following the motorbike of the teenagers who died last night. Where Yoonji was known to have gone with them, and Lee concluded that Yoonji was also involved in this case. However, Bong responded casually, because there was no recorded evidence to show that he was the perpetrator. Because he didn't have enough evidence, Lee chose to leave. However, this incident frightened Yoonji, and Bong tried to calm her down by saying that Yoonji was not involved in this incident. Yoonji's figure makes Bong remember a girl he once helped. Where the girl experienced severe trauma due to being raped and she attempted to commit suicide. But just finished one problem, another problem suddenly arose when Bong got a call from Sungyun, who told him to come to an area called Hongdae, while threatening to hand over a knife containing Bong's fingerprints to the police, as evidence in the murder case of 5 students. And it was none other than the knife that Bong had seized in the previous fight. So Sungyun is the real perpetrator of the murder, but she has made such a contrivance to trap Bong. So Bong was very forced to comply with the request. While Yoonji will stay at home so as not to be dragged into danger. However, unexpectedly, Bong did not go to the Hongdae area here. Instead he headed straight for Sungyun's base. Where this made Sungyun and his brother Dachul panic. Because their headquarters was minimally guarded, because previously several gangster members were sent to Hongdae with the aim of harming Bong. As a result, in an instant, Bong was able to control the situation, thanks to taking hostage a bald man, Dachul's subordinate. While threatening to kill him. Dachul, who felt cornered, immediately gave him the knife and immediately ran away from there. So, when Bong tried to chase the brothers, unexpectedly a blonde-haired man named Yuri came to stop him. Where Yuri has quite sophisticated martial arts techniques, so it takes a lot of time to defeat him. But when he got home it turned out that Yoonji had been kidnapped. Without wasting time, Bong immediately looked for Yoonji's whereabouts. The tracking bracelet worn by Yoonji takes Bong to a house where a hot film is being filmed, where Yoonji's friend was forced to act out a scene in the film. But apparently Yoonji wasn't there, and Sungin had taken her GPS bracelet. Then Bong forced Sungin to tell Yoonji's whereabouts. Because he couldn't stand the torture anymore, Sungin finally told Bong that Yoonji had been taken to the hotel. After that Bong went straight to the hotel in question. Not long after, Lee came to the crime scene. Bong finally arrived at the hotel, but there he had to face dozens of members of the Axe gang. But their large numbers did not frighten him in the least. Until finally he succeeded in killing them all one by one. And only 3 people remained who ran away in fear. Bong still couldn't find Yoonji at the hotel. He then forced the 3 people to tell him where Yoonji was. But no one wanted to open their mouth. Until he had to shoot them one by one. The 3rd teenager finally wanted to talk. He said there was a man who knew Yoonji's whereabouts. But not long after, the man in question died falling from the top of the building. Where it turns out that Yuri was the one who threw the man. And you can be sure that only Yuri knows Yoonji's whereabouts. Yuri then said that this morning Yoonji would be smuggled to Russia using a cargo ship, where Bong had to immediately rescue her. But before that, Yuri challenged Bong to step over his corpse first. It seems Yuri is very confident that this time he will beat Bong. Bong then lured Yuri into the hotel, where they started fighting. Until finally he was able to outwit Yuri, and immediately escaped from the hotel by jumping down through the window. But his steps were stopped by Lee, who came pointing a gun at him, where Lee already had evidence of Bong's fingerprints when he attacked Sungin. But Bong swiftly turned the situation around by grabbing his gun. Then he forced Lee into the car and handcuffed him. Long story short, Bong arrived at the dock. Here he saw Yoonji, who was about to be put on a cargo ship. But before all that happened, Bong immediately accelerated his car and hit the car Yoonji was in. And here Bong massacred a number of gangster members quite brutally. Where in the midst of this chaos, Dachul stole the opportunity to hit Bong with his car. But the plan failed, and instead he was killed in just an instant. From here, Bong surprisingly gets into the car, saying he knows all the truth. So it turns out that Detective Lee was also involved in buying and selling women with gangsters, where he has the task of protecting the trade flow, because he has received illicit funds from a big boss out there. But Bong still gives him the opportunity to negotiate this, as long as the detective is willing to make a false statement about the incident that just happened. As if Bong never killed anyone. And the detective agreed. Moving to the hospital, Bong looked fine, while Yoonji still needed rest so he could recover quickly. After that, Detective Lee met Bong to discuss the previous incident, where Detective Lee asked how Bong knew that he was also involved in the trafficking action. Then Bong replied that he had seen evidence of collaboration between Lee and Dachul via Dachul's cell phone. Plus, when the Bong is at the hotel, Bong sees Sungin's body in the trunk of Detective Lee's car. He also assumed that the body would be burned at the cremation ground, which was located right behind the hotel. Because it turned out that when Detective Lee arrived at the house of prostitution, Sungin had not actually died and could still be saved. However, the detective decided to kill him because he was worried that one day Sungin would open his mouth regarding the woman trafficking case, which would definitely threaten his profession as a detective. Then here Bong makes an attractive offer, where he is willing to keep a secret and keep his mouth shut regarding Detective Lee's crimes. As long as the detective is willing to help him find the big boss, aka the person behind the woman trafficking case. Until finally Detective Lee agreed, even though he didn't know for sure about the whereabouts of the big boss. Elsewhere, Bong meets a man named Kim, who is an illegal arms dealer. It was from this meeting that it began to be revealed that Bong was actually a former hitman, where he has purchased illegal weapons at Kim's shop to complete all kinds of missions so far. Not long afterward, he received a call from Yoonji, informing him that his friend had committed suicide because of the trauma experienced as a result of this incident. This makes Bong even more enthusiastic about hunting Ryujin, namely a big boss in the trade, and break the chain of this human trafficking business. When visiting Yoonji at the hospital, Bong received information that Yoonji's mother was not his biological mother. It is known that Yoonji's father was a wealthy businessman, but he died in an accident several years ago. Meanwhile, Ryujin turns out to be a judge who has a strong influence in the political environment. In the evening, Bong came to the party, and immediately broke in after knocking out the guard outside using a sniper rifle. In this mission he was assisted by Lee, who actually betrayed him. He suddenly pointed the gun at Bong, putting him in a corner. Lee said that he was not afraid of the evidence that Bong had, because he would definitely get support from Ryujin, who was a judge. Bong was then taken to Ryujin, whose real name is Kim Masamune. Without wasting any time, Ryujin immediately ordered Lee to kill Bong. At the same time, the judge entered his room with a beautiful girl who had been selected. Back to Bong, which managed to turn things around. Then Bong began to massacre dozens of Ryujin's men, until in the end they all died on the spot, including Lee. Then suddenly Yuri appeared and the two of them started exchanging gunfire. When they both ran out of ammunition, they both fought again without weapons. Here Bong doesn't seem to want to give the slightest opening for Yuri to hit back. He fell several times and tried to get up until finally he was overwhelmed and died. After that, Bong met Ryujin in his room and made Ryujin very surprised. Then he asked Ryujin to sit down and invited him to talk about who the person behind this business was, and how it worked. From Ryujin's mouth, he said that Yoonji's stepmother was actually the big boss who managed this business. After getting this information, Bong immediately killed Ryujin. The next day he secretly met Yoonji's stepmother, who was currently still on holiday with his wife. Then Bong directed this woman to drive her car somewhere. Here Yoonji's stepmother admits that all this time she was the one in charge of looking for girls to sell, including Yoonji. Until he came to a quiet street, Bong told him to stop the car. Bong said that he would look after Yoonji until she grew up. After his mission was completed, Bong immediately met his wife Shunai on the beach. Yoonji was also seen there, where it turned out that his wife was a girl who was helped several years ago, who almost committed suicide due to trauma. Where it turns out that Shunai has long known about the business run by Yoonji's stepmother. And she deliberately entrusted Yoonji to Bong so that her husband would help Yoonji, just like Bong had helped him before. And the movie is over. Thank you for watching. Look forward to the next video.